Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is when you're watching this. I'm Robin Da Vinci, and I am doing a series of YouTube videos and will continue to do so. I have also been on a boomer apology tour because I am a boomer, and I think there are things that we have not taught generations behind us that we should have done. So there's a couple of things that I'm going to talk about today that are urgent. And so my apology, as I do always, is we didn't tell you how to talk about money. We didn't say to you, do not get married, do not get engaged, do not go into a partnership, do not get a roommate, do not get out of college and live with someone unless you've had the money talk. And that is the really scary part about all of this, is that we can talk about so many things and you can watch people be critical on YouTube and on Facebook and everywhere about other issues, but we are afraid to approach the people we love about money. And so this first part of a 3-part series is going to move into probably a product so that the people of the world can talk to each other about the mistakes we make with money. And it does stem from your childhood. It does go back to the way your parents talked about money. It does. It goes back to how you learn to communicate. It goes back to the triggers you have when spending money, when saving money, when worrying about money. It all comes together in a mess when you start a relationship. So, what I want to talk to you about today is generalizations about people getting into money relationships. The number one money relationship, of course, is when you get engaged and decide to get married. No way do you do that. No way are you supposed to do that without understanding your partner's issues with money. And I don't like the fact that people think prenups are bad, or that says that you already think your relationship isn't going to work. That's not true. Those are emotional triggers to stop you from questioning the person you love about their stuff. And it is within your rights as a person who is either asking someone to marry them, or um, accepting a proposal of marriage, or living together, which is a huge step, or getting into business with someone, or roommates that are going to say, oh, we'll live together and we'll split everything 50-50. It is so wrong to enter any of those relationships unless you've sat down and talked about it. Number one thing you have to talk about: what are your spending habits? How do you feel about money? How were you raised in money? Are you a saver? Are you a spender? Are you a trigger spender, an emotional spender? What kind of spender are you? And you can't hide that from the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. If you've got a money issue and you've got a spending issue or a buying issue, you need to tell your future spouse or partner or roommate or business partner your problems with money. Now, money scares people. And when they start to get scared, they start to recoil and say, I'm just not going to talk about it. There are millions and millions and millions and millions, probably billions of people who never sit down and talk about money. They never say, this frightens me, or I'm in a lot of debt, or I've not looked at my credit score, all of those things. So I am going to talk to you about that. Okay, let's take our first example. You want to ask someone to marry you. I'm specifically talking to the person doing the proposal, whether you're man or woman, that matters not. The person who's going to do the asking, that takes a lot of courage, because you're pretty sure they're going to say yes. And most of the time, the person you're asking says yes. But a lot of times, something goes wrong and someone says, no, I can't. I'm not ready. I don't think so. No, I don't want to. And there are a lot of reasons behind that, but I'm going to go with the practical. Before you ask that person to spend the rest of their lives with you, you need to run your credit reports. You do realize that if you marry someone, their debt becomes your problem. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that their debt becomes your debt, because there are ways that around that, but their debt becomes your issue. When someone comes into a relationship with a lot of debt that is unspoken, the person that is unaware of that gets really screwed over. I'm not kidding you. So the first thing you need to do is sit down with your credit reports, and you say, why would I do that? I've never even run my credit report and I don't want to look at it. No, go online and get your credit report. Most of the time now you can actually go through your bank website and it'll say, see credit report, do it. Because if both of you are talking about, oh, we want to buy a house and we want to have kids, not going to happen if you don't know what your credit report says. What if your credit report is 810 and your spouse's credit report is 580? You're in trouble. You will not be able to buy a house, at least with a good interest rate and with some consideration, if you have such a difference in your credit scores. And you say, why would that matter? The higher your credit score, the better you are with lenders. It's imperative. Almost every couple I've ever coached or been with wants to buy a home. You can't buy a home if you have bad credit. So let's say you're in your 20s, you're totally in love, which is fabulous, but you guys have not sat down and talked about money. Okay, you need to say, tonight's a neutral zone. Tonight, we're not going to be combative. Tonight, we're going to talk about our money. And so the two of you run your credit scores independently, print them out, and bring them to the table. And have the courage to say, I'm really in debt. I screwed up my credit when I was in my 20s or when I was in college. I don't know how to get out of it. I have student debt that's on here. My credit score is very low. I don't know if I would even qualify for another credit card. Oh my goodness. That is very courageous. Do not back down from speaking that out loud. Okay. So number one, credit scores. Bring a credit report to the table. Number two, know your debt, right? Know your debt. Even though the credit score is there, it might not reflect all your debt. You could owe personal money to your parents. You could owe to a friend. You could have something backlogged that isn't showing anywhere. You could have filed a bankruptcy. You need to let the person know that you are joining and commingling your life with about your debt. Does it take courage? It absolutely does. You need to sit down, each of you, and say where you're at money-wise. Okay, so we know we have to run a credit report because we need to know what our score is. You can increase your score, you can get it better, it can be on the borderline, and I will show you what to do in future videos. And also you can go to my website, robindavinci.com, because I'm going to start having more information available. I have been in bookkeeping most of my life. I started a job at 17 to pay off tuition in a school my mom was too broke to pay. And I worked at the school, but I couldn't earn enough money and they weren't going to give me a diploma. So I went to work right out of high school as a bookkeeper and started earning money to pay back the tuition debt my mom had borrowed from someone. Well, no one knew she had borrowed that money but me. If she was going to get into a relationship, she would have had to disclose, oh, by the way, I owe personal debt to someone for my daughter's tuition, right? I mean, that would only be fair. You cannot just walk around with all these secrets, right? Okay, so credit score, debt that is shown on the credit score, and debt that isn't shown on the credit score. That's where integrity comes in. All of this is about integrity, full disclosure, and transparency. And you might say, I really don't want to do that. This is too hard for me and it's a secret. Well, if it really is that difficult, then you need to get some counseling and maybe I can point you in the right direction for how to learn the conflict resolution of talking about money. It is a conflict and there is resolution. So, credit score, personal debt. Next, how much money do each of you make and how much do you bring in? One of the biggest arguments in a relationship, whether it's a roommate situation, a business partner, or a marriage, or a joint relationship where you share money, is the inequity in the money that is brought to the table. Now, if someone makes more than you, that doesn't mean you're a bad person. That doesn't mean anything other than that they make more money than you. When you talk about the money that's going to go together, that you're going to bring to the relationship, you have to talk about it in dollars and cents. It can't be some arbitrary number. You have to show concretely what you're earning. And I'm not talking about some casual relationship. I'm talking about two people who are signing up for something very significant, either a partnership or a marriage or a roommate situation that could last years. You guys need to know what each other is doing. And it has to be clear that you cannot take advantage of the situation when someone earns more than you. And I have seen that so many times. People come together, one earns more than the other, and then there is some sort of, I don't know what you would call it, animosity toward the person who doesn't bring in enough money. I have even seen it where the wage earner is bringing in money and someone is home with the kids and the wage earner is getting really irritated by the person who's home with the kids and how they spend money. This is no joke, everybody. The conflict over money is the number one conflict in the world. So you need to know upfront, what are your paychecks and what will you be bringing into the household, right? And then you have to go over, how will you make it equitable if someone makes $100,000 a year and someone makes $60,000 a year, and there's that $40,000 a year delta? What are you going to do to make it so no one builds up any animosity or anger toward the other person if one person has to contribute more? Believe me, when you're first in love and everything is fabulous and nobody cares, but after the real work is being done in the relationship, people start to really get upset. So after your credit report and after you disclose all of your personal debt, the next thing is, what do you make? What kind of money do you make? What are you bringing to the table? How much can you two really afford together? What kind of rent can you afford? What kind of mortgage can you afford? Does someone have savings and someone has no savings? That's a big deal. Believe me, if someone has been saving money all along and the other person doesn't have any savings and is expecting one person to put the down payment on a house or the deposit on an apartment, that will bring about animosity and resentment if you don't talk about it up front. You have to talk about what you bring home and what you need. And if someone says, all right, I'll put up the deposit for the first and last month's rent and the security deposit and the cleaning deposit for the apartment, the other person has to have how they're going to reimburse half of that and make sure that the two of you are equitable. Do you understand how equitable works? If you're equitable, the money situation is greatly diminished and then other problems can be looked at. But while there's an inequity in money, it can't be done. Okay, so now we're saying we have to look at what we bring to the table. Then you have to say, we need a budget. We are thinking about getting married. We want to be together for the rest of our lives. We are in love. We love being in business together. We are perfect partners. What in the world do you need to make sure that works? You cannot have one person in your partnership carrying the weight financially and the other one running around without any knowledge of what's going on. I am 100% against one person handling all the money and the other person not knowing. Believe me, my experience in life, my experience as a bookkeeper, you both need to be on the same page all the time about where your money is going and what your money is doing. So let's say someone contributes $3,500 a month to the account and someone contributes $1,800. That's a substantial amount of money to be able to live a very nice, uncomplicated life with, unless someone has a lot of debt and their money is going into the joint account and they're afraid to tell you that they need, $1,500 a month for minimum payments on a credit card. Do you see what I'm saying? Let's say you are debt free. You pay off your credit card every month and you don't spend a lot of money, but your partner has $1,500 a month in minimum payments for credit cards in debt from college. If you don't know that, when you're joining your funds together, you're going to be shocked because someone's going to have to pay those minimum credit card debt. That needs to be listed on your personal debt and it needs to be in your budget. So you guys listen up. You need to know what is expected from each of you. How much is your medical insurance? How much is renter's insurance? Do you both have auto payments, like car payments? And what is your auto insurance payment per month? What are all those things? What kind of checking account do you have? Are you at the same bank? Are you going to join forces at the same bank? Who's going to pick the bank? In the future videos I do, I'm going to help you do all this. This video is just an overview of what we need to discuss. So I'm telling you, stop right now. Do not go any further in your relationship if it's deep and abiding and you want to be together, whether it's a partnership in business or a roommate situation or a marriage. You have to know these things. And I mean, you have to know them right away and you have to understand them specifically. So you cannot do this until you know that. And so after that, so you've got a budget. You have to bring to your budget all of your payments. Because when you get married, you usually get a joint insurance policy for renters, and you put both of you on the same auto insurance, and you put both of you on your renter's insurance, and you bring to the table your valuable items. You want to get your engagement ring, insured. I'm sure there are millions of people who don't have their jewelry insured. I know that right now people are really struggling to stay above the poverty level with the economic problems we're having right now, but you still have to be honest. And don't look to anybody else to solve your problems. Bring them in to join you in a solution, but do not keep silent and expect the other person to solve your problems. We have a problem in this world with doing that, thinking someone else is going to jump in or ride in on a white horse or show up with a wealthy family and solve our problem. No. Personal responsibility is the most important thing in a relationship. Now, there are ways to do this. You can have a joint account where you put in money equally for joint bills, and then you have separate accounts that you pay your other things with. You can come up with that solution. That's normally a more, I'm going to say, further on in life type of solution. Usually young people getting married want to join everything together and want to be in life together and are happy to just pay bills and all of those things together. But later in life, when people have been burned by a divorce or upset by a bad partnership, they're usually a little more careful. So I will go over with you when in later episodes, and on my website, you can probably join and pay a monthly fee and get a lot of advice. I'm setting that up for the new year. I want you to think about, why are you marrying this person? If it's to solve your money problems, stop right there. Do not do that. That person puts an unfair burden on the other person, and the other person will resent you. It happens all the time. Believe me. I am almost 70 years old, and I've experienced it with people for the last 45 years. I know. Believe me, I know. So now that you've brought everything to the table and you're discussing it, are you going to explode or blow up or walk away? Or are you going to put on your big person pants and actually listen to the other person's dilemma? Because most people emotionally get into debt not on purpose. They are triggered by something from their childhood, or they're triggered by how their parents handled money, or they watch their parents go through a divorce and they have anxiety about money. And so they're stopped in their tracks, progressing in the money department. And I'm not talking about things you should talk to with psychologists about emotional problems. I'm talking about the practicalities of getting through the money conversation and what you need to bring to the table. So let's recap. Credit score. Bring your credit report to the table. And if you haven't met someone yet and you're not in a relationship, you still need your credit score. You need to go on to whatever freecreditscore.com, or go on your freecreditreport.com, or go on your bank website, and you get one credit report a year for free. And you need to get your scores. There's three different companies that actually record your credit. And they're most everybody that you have credit with reports to one of those credit agencies. And so you might not think that something's on your credit report, and it is. And if you've ever been kicked out of an apartment and not paid rent, there will be something on your credit report. There could be something that says that. If you've not paid your taxes and you've had a lien, that lien can take your credit report down 200-300 points. And getting liens off your credit report is really tough. Bankruptcies also impact your credit report. So you're going to have your credit report. You're going to bring your personal debt to the table. You are going to tell each other how much money you make, and you are going to start a budget for your life going forward, whether it's business or personal. And then you have to start commingling your money and figure out how you're going to do this. Then you have to come up with, almost in a practical, pragmatic manner without any emotion. And remember, it's really important to take emotion out of this conversation. That's for somebody else. You bring without emotion, and you look at each other and you promise that you will work through this and listen. And then you tell each other what your situation was with money growing up and why you are in this debt. Why do you think this happened? And if the other person isn't listening to you and starts yelling at you or anything when you bring up these practical things, that is a red flag. I hope you heard that. If someone yells at you when you come to them with a problem that needs discussion, and they stomp out, or they yell at you, or they punish you in some way, that is a big red flag. Nobody should, if you're being honorable, should have to deal with that. So after all those practical things, you have to come in with the idea that you are going to be a good listener. Because in a marriage, in a relationship, listening is the number one part of communication. What is the other person saying, and what do they need from you? And vice versa. It shouldn't be a one-way street where somebody goes, oh, okay, I understand, let's work through it. And the other person runs off in tears or screaming, or gets in the car and drives away, or screams at you and embarrasses you in front of people, or the children see that. Because I know there's millions of households, millions and millions, including the one I grew up in, where when you talked about money, it was really a violent conversation, very upsetting, and it would make me crawl in a corner and say, I don't want to ever talk with money to anybody. And I got in the money business partially from my fear of money. And I said, you know what? I have to combat this. I have to learn what to do with money. So I want to tell you, and I feel like I'm sitting in the dark now because it gets dark so darn early. I'm sitting in the dark. Well, I don't know if that looks any better, but okay, different light. Now I don't look so scary. It was looking very ominous. So here you go. We have to make sure that the person you're speaking with, you come into this discussion in your big person pants with your big person patience and your open mind and your open heart to talk about money conflicts, because everybody has a secret about money. Everybody has a fear about money. And even the people that have said to me, oh, I save all my money, I don't have a money problem, just in the way they communicated that means that there is something in their life that made them go, oh, well, I do the right things with money. What you want to talk about when you're talking about money is how you got to this point, how you can fix it. Be prepared to have a solution. Don't come in with a problem without a journey to the solution. So we understand each other. My next part 2 is going to be, I'm going to take either the man's or the woman's side of this. I haven't decided which part is coming next, but a man's or a woman's side of what happens when they enter a relationship and don't realize this is going on. I am telling you that there are people with hidden gambling problems that come to you with a gambling problem, and they're not telling anybody about it, and they're spending money, and you're going, where's all our money going? These are things we need to learn. And these are, I'm not talking in any way, shape, or form about being able to solve your problem for you. I'm just going to give you the tools so you can see what the problem is. Because if you cannot talk about money sanely, if you cannot be gentle and kind and really work through this problem, then you should not get into the relationship. Absolutely. I'm telling you 100%, don't get into the relationship. It is a big red flag. And believe me, most people do not have the tools to handle money conflicts. And I want to give you the practical, pragmatic tools to handle money conflicts. So for your homework, if I was going to give you homework so that you watch the next video, get out your credit score, list all your personal debt, know what money you make and what would be discretionary funds versus money that's committed to debt. I mean, let's face it, if you bring home net $2,000 a month and you have $1,000 a month in credit card minimum payments, you really only have $1,000 to put toward joint bills in a rent or mortgage situation. So you've got to be really brutally honest with the other person and say, right now, I don't really have much to contribute. I love you, but I don't have much to contribute. And this is why. Now, can you imagine yourself saying that to someone? If you can't, go practice in front of a mirror and get down to the nitty gritty, because you need to sit with a person you love and say that. Anyway, so you can see where I'm going with this. So this is part 1. I've set you up for part 2. I'm going to do that in a few days. And I want you to really, really get involved and understand what I'm saying. And I want you to help you. And I can get people through this. Sometimes it takes a year or 2 to climb out of the mess you've made with money. And I'm speaking directly to kids that come out of college, young women who weren't shown how to handle their money, young men who have been spending freely in freedom in their 20s, often come to their 30s with money problems. And I want to help. I really want to help. And again, I apologize that my generation, the boomers, did not institute these kind of programs into schools and get you to be able to know the conflict of money and the way to speak about it. So I hope you liked this video. I hope it helped you a little bit. I will come back with more. I want you to be involved in your life, and I want you to have a happy relationship. And that has to come from frank discussions about money. So please like the video and subscribe. If you have suggestions, please put them in. You can communicate with me at our Da Vinci no, no. Robin Da Vinci IBB at gmail.com if you have a question. I know I shouldn't probably do that, but I would like to hear if there's any suggestions. And please like and subscribe. And I will be back in a couple of days with part 2 of this very important message. Thank you so much. I hope you're all well. And please be here in 2021 to celebrate a brand new year that may be less hectic. Thank you.